My family actually held a formal vote at my own Thanksgiving dinner table to steal my $150,000 IVF and nursery fund. They decided the money belonged to my sister, the same woman who abandoned her twin toddlers for 3 years. Why? So she could buy a luxury downtown penthouse for a guy she barely knew. I sat across from them in stunned silence. The roasted turkey sat untouched in the center of the table. My mother leaned forward, resting her elbows on the expensive linen tablecloth I bought her last Christmas. She looked me dead in the eye and justified the theft. She called it a necessary family investment. My father nodded right along with her, swirling his wine glass. My sister just smirked from the end of the table. My throat tightened. My stomach twisted into a hard, cold knot. My own flesh and blood sat in my dining room, eating my food and casually stripping away my future. My mother, Patricia, took another bite of the expensive steak my husband David had spent all afternoon preparing. She chewed slowly, dabbing her mouth with a cloth napkin. She was wearing the designer cashmere coat I had purchased for her birthday, refusing to take it off indoors just to flaunt it. She demanded my life savings with the casual entitlement of someone asking for a glass of water. Isabella is the face of this family. She sneered, gesturing toward my sister. She has the look for high society. You just run a suburban daycare. Elena, give her the money so she can build a real legacy. Isabella sat there, swirling David's vintage wine in her glass, absolutely vibrating with delusional superiority. She had dumped her twin boys on my parents 3 years ago to backpack across Europe. And now she was back demanding a penthouse. Beside her sat Julian, hair loud, unemployed boyfriend. He wore a cheap suit and aggressive cologne, leaning over my dining table to patronizingly pat my shoulder. You need to stop letting your hormones cloud your financial vision, Julian told me, flashing a bright, empty smile. Real wealth requires agility. Your savings account is dead weight. When I was 10 years old, Patricia used to lock me in my room during family parties because my hair wasn't straight enough and my laugh was too loud. She told me I was the background character in Isabella's grand life. They broke me back then. Today, I am the executioner. I smiled. A slow, glacial pulling of my lips that did not reach my eyes. I reached under the table, pulled out my laptop, and set it right next to the gravy boat. I told them they were right. I told them family is everything. Julian's eyes lit up with sheer, unadulterated greed. I logged into my banking portal and stared him down, demanding his offshore routing numbers. He recited them breathlessly. I typed them in, verifying the exact amount, $150,000. Before I clicked the final confirmation, I slid a single sheet of crisp white paper across the mahogany table. I told them the bank required a family severance agreement for tax purposes. A simple liability waiver proving this was a gift and ensuring I would never be held responsible for Julian's unregulated crypto trades. David, standing quietly behind my chair, placed his heavy brass notary public stamp directly on the table. The metallic clack echoed in the dining room. My father, Robert, snatched the pen. Blinded by the promise of free wealth and completely obsessed with securing his country club status through his golden child, he scribbled his signature. Patricia signed next. Rolling her eyes and calling me paranoid, Isabella practically tore the paper, signing her name before shoving it back to me. They did not read a single paragraph. They did not read the clause identifying the document as a deed in lieu of foreclosure. They did not read the name of the holding company listed at the bottom. I hit send on the laptop. The screen flashed a green confirmation. Julian pumped his fist in the air. Isabella squealed. They celebrated their brilliant heist, completely unaware of the financial bear trap clamped tightly around their ankles. By deliberately executing a massive six-figure international wire transfer late on a Friday night, I triggered an automatic anti-money laundering review. The bank security protocols locked the funds in a processing limbo. Julian could see the pending transfer, but he could not access a single dime until the bank opened on Monday morning. I stripped away my own fraud protection, forcing the money through, which trapped Julian perfectly. He had to maintain his loving, devoted boyfriend charade for 48 agonizing hours to ensure my family did not panic and cancel the wire. Over the weekend, Isabella flooded social media. She posted endless photos, posing on velvet sofas in luxury furniture, showrooms, tagging Julian in every post, bragging about their massive real estate acquisition. My father bragged on his community message boards about his brilliant financial maneuvering. They were floating on an illusion. Monday morning arrived. The bank doors opened. The hold lifted. Isabella sat in the lobby of the real estate office, waiting to show her broker the proof of funds. She opened her phone, tapping the icon for the crypto portfolio Julian had set up for her. The screen went white. Bold black text appeared, error 404. Page not found. She refreshed it. Nothing. She called Julian's phone. A robotic voice told her the number was disconnected. Julian had waited just long enough for the funds to hit his untraceable shell account, burned his entire digital footprint, and vanished like smoke. The money was gone. Every single penny. Robert panicked. He had a terrifying secret he had kept hidden from my mother. He was drowning in debt. His massive historic estate, the crown jewel of his fake country club persona, was in extreme arrears. He had planned to secretly skim a portion of Isabella's money to bail himself out. Now, facing total ruin, he desperately needed to project stability. He invited his elite friends over for a lavish brunch, pouring expensive champagne while sweating through his tailored shirt, standing in his grand foyer, surrounded by judging eyes and listening ears. Robert dialed his private real estate broker. He put the phone on speaker, demanding a quiet, off-market cash sale of the estate to cover his catastrophic losses. The foyer fell dead silent. The broker's voice crackled through the speaker. Heavy with pity, "Robert, you do not own this house." The broker said, "You defaulted. A company called Apex Holdings bought your foreclosed deed 3 months ago." I stepped through the heavy oak front doors of the estate. The afternoon light caught the dust motes in the air. "I am Apex Holdings," I said. Robert's face drained of all color. His knees buckled slightly, his hand clutching the edge of the entryway table. The waiver they had so eagerly signed at my Thanksgiving table was the legal surrender of their property. They had traded their multi-million-dollar home for cash that a grifter immediately stole. The country club friends gasped, whispering furiously to each other. Patricia let out a horrified, strangled sob, realizing her entire social empire had just burned to the ground in front of her rivals. I walked forward, dropped a formal 30-day eviction notice onto the marble floor, turned around, and walked out. 2 weeks later, my parents and sister were living out of suitcases in a cheap roadside motel. But toxic people do not surrender. They mutate. Driven by pure spite and desperate for cash, Patricia and Isabella hatched a malicious extortion plot. They called Child Protective Services, filing fabricated abuse claims against my daycare center, hoping the state would remove Isabella's abandoned twins from my care. They planned to sue me for emotional damages and force a cash settlement. The state investigator arrived at my facility unannounced. The children were napping peacefully. I did not panic. David calmly stepped out of the office, handing the investigator a tablet loaded with state-licensed, time-stamped, high-definition security footage spanning the last 6 months, alongside our pristine medical and facility logs. The lie disintegrated instantly. The investigator apologized for the intrusion and closed the case right there in the hallway. I immediately forwarded the footage to my corporate attorney. We filed a formal criminal complaint for swatting and filing a false police report. 3 days later, Isabella stood in the cramped lobby of the motel, frantically trying to check out and skip town. 2 uniformed police officers walked through the sliding glass doors. They did not shout. They simply blocked the exit, grabbed her wrists, and clamped cold steel handcuffs over her skin. The motel staff and guests stared in silence as the golden child was perp-walked out to the squad car, stripped of every ounce of her unearned dignity. The judge sentenced her to 3 years in state prison. The court ordered Robert and Patricia to pay heavy restitution for the legal fees, bankrupting whatever tiny fraction of credit they had left. Their country club friends blocked their numbers. Their church banned them from the congregation. They became ghosts in their own city. A few months later, Patricia tried to leave a voicemail on my phone. Her voice was shaking, playing the victim, crying that she was still my mother and that blood should mean something. I listened to it while sitting in the sunlit nursery of my home. I did not feel a spike of rage. I did not feel the urge to call her back and scream. I just tapped the screen and hit delete. The trash icon absorbed her tears, and my house remained perfectly quiet. David sat on the plush rug next to me. Holding a pen, he leaned over the coffee table and signed the final permanent adoption paperwork for the twins. The boys were laughing in the backyard, chasing our golden retriever, completely oblivious to the toxic storm we had shielded them from. This is my chosen family, a family built on protection, honesty, and unwavering respect. When you spend your entire life as the scapegoat, you start to believe that keeping the peace is your sole responsibility. You learn to swallow your anger, to shrink yourself down, to fund their delusions just to avoid the screaming. But surviving a narcissistic family system requires a brutal rewiring of your own mind. You have to understand exactly what you are dealing with. Narcissists are blinded by their own image. They are so obsessed with how things look that they entirely ignore how things actually work. Their arrogance makes them the perfect marks. I learned 3 absolute rules through this fire. Rule number 1 is the myth of unconditional blood. Society tells us that family is an unbreakable bond. It is a lie designed to keep victims compliant. Family is a title earned through mutual respect, not a lifetime free pass for financial and emotional abuse. Blood might connect you, but rigid, impenetrable boundaries protect you. Rule number 2 is the weaponization of silence. True power does not require a screaming match. It does not require you to defend your reality to people who are committed to misunderstanding you. The most lethal boundary you can ever set is simply stepping back, handing them the pen, and letting them face the unshielded consequences of their own staggering arrogance. Rule number 3 is the real definition of wealth. Wealth is not a country club membership. It is not a luxury penthouse or a designer coat. True wealth is the ability to lock your front door at night and know that the absolute peace inside your walls cannot be manipulated, guilt-tripped, or stolen by anyone. If your family relies on your silence and your wallet to keep their toxic peace, who is actually paying the price? Let me know in the comments when you finally decided you could not afford to pay it anymore. Subscribe if you believe in protecting your peace at all costs. I know exactly what you are screaming at the screen right now. You are sitting there thinking, Why didn't she just walk away from that Thanksgiving table? Why did she agree to hand over $150,000 to a blatant scammer in the first place? It is easy to judge the situation from the outside. But when you are trapped inside a toxic family system, the exit door is never that obvious. Let us break down the psychology here. Elena was not naive, and she was certainly not weak. She was a victim of something psychologists call intermittent reinforcement. I like to call it the slot machine effect. When you grow up as the family scapegoat, your toxic parents do not treat you terribly 100% of the time. Every once in a while, they drop a tiny crumb of praise. They give you a single compliment or invite you to host a holiday dinner. You keep pulling the lever, hoping for the jackpot of genuine, unconditional love, but all you get are crumbs. You become addicted to the hope that if you just give a little more of your money, your time, or your peace, they will finally respect you. That is why victims stay. And that is exactly how families bleed them dry. But when Elena finally snapped out of the illusion, she executed an absolute masterclass in financial self-defense. Let us look at her 3 smartest street smart moves so you can use them if you are ever backed into a corner. First, the audit strategy. When Julian demanded the cash, Elena did not just hand over her phone or write a blank check. She made him recite his offshore routing numbers out loud and initiated the transfer herself late on a Friday. Scammers absolutely hate details, and they hate established bank protocols. By forcing the massive transaction through the bank's standard anti-money laundering weekend hold, she trapped the grifter in his own timeline, guaranteeing the funds would not clear until her trap was fully set. Second, the buyout. That severance agreement was not just petty revenge. It was a legally binding deed in lieu of foreclosure. She used her capital to secretly buy the distressed debt of her abusers. Sometimes securing your permanent freedom means speaking the only language entitled people understand, ironclad. Notarized contracts. You are not being paranoid. You are investing in your permanent exit strategy. Third, building the case. When Patricia and Isabella tried to weaponize Child Protective Services to extort her, Elena did not scream, cry, or argue with the investigator. She just handed over time-stamped, high-definition security footage and state facility licenses. In the real world, the person with the best documentation always wins. Emotion loses to evidence every single time. Here's the final verdict. You cannot outlove a narcissist, and you cannot buy their respect. Your life savings, your career, and your mental health are not bargaining chips to be gambled away on people who only love what you can provide for them. The moment you stop funding their illusions is the moment you reclaim your reality. Have you ever had to use a contract, a hard boundary, or a digital receipt to protect yourself from an entitled relative? Drop your story in the comments below. We read every single one. And your experience might just be the blueprint someone else needs to escape. If you want more strategies on how to protect your peace and your wallet, hit that subscribe button. Stay safe. Stay smart. And remember, your peace is priceless.